Let's move on then to another player that's potentially incoming. We mentioned Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. This is one has been bubbling away for a few weeks now. The club interested in signing the forward if Barcelona will let him leave. Aubameyang potentially back in the Premier League. We've spoke about it a few times, Michael, but does he have unfinished business here?
As a player, yes, and as a person, because he left under a cloud at Arsenal, and listening to Mikel Arteta talking about establishing the right culture at Arsenal Football Club. This was the club captain of Arsenal off the back of Granit Xhaka. He left under a cloud. Look, we know what he can do. He's had a pretty good spell at Barcelona, I think. But when the club have brought in £130 million worth of players and still not sure they're allowed to play, it's extraordinary that we're talking about this. And at some stage, Barcelona will have to let a couple of players go. And there's a number of Premier League clubs waiting for that green light. And that, for me, could be Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I do believe he's got unfinished business. I do believe he can still do it in the Premier League. And the key, and then we talk about the right kind of striker, is he going to play a false nine, Thomas Tuchel? Irrelevant. What's relevant is Thomas Tuchel has a wonderful relationship with this player. And he will be driving this. And we've talked about him having to be quite hands-on with no sporting director, so he's working with Todd Bowley. It's clear to me that Thomas Tuchel will want this. And I'm hearing him, I get the impression that this is the striker he'll want.
I can't wait to see him prove people wrong. Because like Michael said, he left under poor circumstances at Arsenal. He was loved by the fans, absolutely adored, and he was the one for perhaps 2 or 3 seasons that was getting the goals. And it didn't end in the way that he would have liked it to. And I love a player that's hungry to prove someone wrong, because I think that's where you see the real mark of a man. Are you good enough to prove them wrong and say, look, you shouldn't have let me go, and look, now I'm going to go and prove it by scoring goals for Chelsea, which will hurt Arsenal fans and Arsenal even more.
And they didn't replace him, Arsenal, did they? And, look at what... I know Eddie Nketiah showed some form near the end, but they didn't finish in the top 4 in the end. Would they have done with Aubameyang? We'll never know. So, again, unfinished business.
Well, I mean, we've just heard about the relationship between Thomas Tuchel and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Dan, this is a player that Thomas Tuchel knows very well. They've had some time together. That could help for Chelsea.
Yeah, obviously they've got this relationship. The stats under Tuchel were very, very good. He scored a lot of goals under Thomas Tuchel, and he's a big fan of him. As we can see the stats there, incredible numbers from Aubameyang. It's important to probably say that he is a different type of player now to what he was then playing under Tuchel. That was a number of years ago. Aubameyang's not quite as dynamic as he was then, but one thing that he is still, Aubameyang, he's a clinical finisher. If you give him a chance, he'll invariably put the ball into the back of the net. And Chelsea need a goal scorer, they need a striker. And if Tuchel's got someone he can lean on that he knows, Arsenal were moving away from that type of player. That wasn't the Arsenal philosophy, that wasn't the type of player that Arsenal wanted. But for Chelsea and the way they're going to play, I actually think Aubameyang could be a really smart signing.
I love it when you see managers go back to players they know well. They've got that relationship with Harry Redknapp, did it so many times. He just brought players into the dressing room, into that environment, that he knew what he was going to get from them. He knew how they were going to train and what he could offer. And it's just that key. Sometimes players just need an arm around the shoulder. And I think you've seen it with Erik ten Hag. He wants to bring in players that he's worked with before.
Yeah, I mean, look, there has been talk. We've had no confirmation on this, but talk all summer that the potential offer of Cristiano Ronaldo, and Tuchel wasn't as keen. Todd Bowley wants to bring in the big name signings to mark his authority as Chelsea's new owner, but maybe he wasn't keen on him. But again, as Mark said, going on people he knows and trusts.
56 goals in 63 games. That's the reason why Arsenal wanted Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Dan, do you think he could have that similar impact on the Premier League if he was to come for this season?
I do think he'd score goals. I also think it's kind of a fascinating narrative for the Premier League, because through the summer, a lot of people, myself included, have been saying potentially Arsenal can take Chelsea's place in the top 4. It'd be quite ironic if, just as you think that's going to happen for Arsenal, Chelsea bring in one of their old players, he comes in and he completely changes that narrative, and Chelsea push on and finish ahead of Arsenal. So it would be a fascinating story for Aubameyang to come back. He's still got it though. Like I said, he's an incredible finisher, and I do think he'd suit Chelsea.